All right, good day, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good one. So, what are we up to today? Well, today we're going to be checking out the new Pulsar Modular P455 MDN Sidecar plugin, which is done in collaboration with Marc Daniel-Nelson, engineer and producer Marc Daniel-Nelson. That's the MDN part of this plugin. And this review is going to be a bit of a different review because I've had the great opportunity to be involved in the beta team for this. So this is a plugin I've actually been using quite a bit for the last couple of months. And short hot take, I love it. I think it sounds incredible and is a lot of fun to use and is already a staple of my workflow. So incredible plugin. This isn't a sponsored video from Pulsar. Still have my independent editorial control over the content here, but even then Pulsar knows all of my thoughts and feelings on this anyways, because I've been involved in the beta. So what is the P455? Well, it's an emulation of Marc Daniel-Nelson's mix bus setup, some of his mixing workflow. I think plugins like this are really cool. I love Signature Series plugins. You can think of all the Waves ones, God Particle from Cradle, and kind of the whole Cradle line is Signature Series plugins. Acoustica's got a bunch of them as well. I think plugins like this are a lot of fun because you really get to see and hear what somebody's up to and their workflow and their take on how they put things together. Kind of puts you into their world a little bit. So it's a lot of fun. But yeah, this is emulating his summing setup, EQ, compression, bit of a line amp that he has on there, and also his analog to digital conversion, which I think is a really great addition to this. Really the only other plugin that I can think of that models analog to digital conversion is the Howie Weinberg Acoustica one. That's the only other one that comes to mind. But I think this is a great addition to this plugin, and once you hear the differences between the conversion, it makes a big difference. But yeah, Pulsar Modular, if you don't know Pulsar Modular, it's the brainchild of Ziad Sadawi. Pulsar came onto my radar really because of this channel. The P42 Climax kept coming up and the P11 Abyss. And when I finally dived into them, ended up having some great interaction with Ziad at Pulsar and have become a full-time user of all of their plugins. Ziad has a big creative soul, and that's fully embedded into his plugins. The plugins are wonderful to use. The sonic quality on them is incredible. And there's just a lot of depth and nuance and complexity to all of the plugins, which I think is great. There's a lot of care put into them, and that's evident not only in just dealing with Pulsar and dealing with Ziad, but when you start using these plugins and you get the depth and the detail that's gone into them when you hear them, they're incredible. And they're plugins that do take a minute to really kind of master. They're not, I mean, you can use them right out of the gate and they sound great, don't get me wrong, but the depth and the detail that does go into them and getting to really learn them does take some time. The P11 Abyss for sure is at the forefront of that. All of the plugins are like that. There's a lot of complexity to them, a lot of subtlety to them, and those take some time to learn. Some of the plugins have a soul knob, and I think that's really appropriate. I think Ziad's really found a way to put his soul into these things, which is great. This is done in collaboration with Marc Daniel-Nelson. If you don't know who he is, he's an incredible engineer, producer, mixer, lots of great records under his belts. I mean, yeah, just look at the credits. Fleetwood Mac, Jason Mraz, Joni Mitchell, Ben Harper, Blade Runner, solo movie, like the guy's done a lot. So we've undoubtedly all been exposed to his work, and now we're getting exposed to his workflow, and once you hear this thing, you'll hear that it's a stunning take. So yeah, what is this thing? It's emulating his mix bus setup. There's quite a lot going on here. So before we dive into everything that's in here, let's go through the usual checklist though of things I like to see on plugins. What am I looking for? Graphical user interface. How does that look? This thing looks great. We do have some options here between the new and an old skin of it, but very clean. Analog inspired GUI, looks great, looks inspiring to use, and it's got a big set of meters right at the top of it, which I love to see. So that checks off my meters. You can resize the GUI and save that to however you like it. We have AB, great AB setup here, which is awesome. You do have compare on Pro Tools, so you do technically have undo here, and I know lots of other DAWs have the undo redo feature. I would love there just to be some undo redo right on the plugin, so I can easily do that. Mix knob, there's no mix knob on this. This is a plugin really tailored to somebody's sound and workflow, so I wouldn't really expect there to be a mix knob on that. That being said, if there was a future release with a mix knob on the compressor, I think that would be really, really cool, or maybe a mix knob on the whole unit, so you could really, really easily and quickly use it in parallel. I think that would be awesome. Gain matching, there's no gain matching on this, no auto gain, but what it does have is an incredible metering setup, which we'll get into when you see it. So you can very quickly and easily gain match your material without having to listen too much. You can visually get there very quickly. I really appreciate that. Manual, quality of the manual. I don't know if you've ever checked out a Pulsar manual before, but they're just incredible. So much depth, so much detail, so much care put into them. Lots of tips, lots of tricks. I highly recommend reading the manual for this and seeing what's going on. Like I said, there's a lot of subtle stuff in here, a lot of subtle stuff in all of the Pulsar plugins, and the manual really breaks down all of that for you. So quality of the manual definitely gets some high marks. What else is on the checklist? Oh, latency. This thing does run in 0 latency without the EQ engaged. Once you engage the EQ is the only part that is oversampled. And so when you engage it, you can see here, it's on my mix bus, we get 49 samples of latency. This plugin is, as I already said, sonically really impressive, and that does come with a bit of a CPU hit. This thing does chew up a bit of your power, so the ability to run a ton of instances depending on your computer isn't necessarily going to be an option, but it does run in 0 latency without the EQ. With the EQ in, very, very small hit of 49 samples, very efficient oversample. So yeah, that kind of covers my checklist. Things I like to see: GUI, AB, undo we don't have. Would love to see that. Meters, the meters are great. We'll get into that. Latency, mix knob, gain match, and the manual. So what is this thing? Well, it is an emulation of Marc Daniel-Nelson's mix bus setup, and it's centered around an API sidecar that is very famously out of the record plant in Sausalito, California, a console that's been involved in the making of some massive records. Rumors, Fleetwood Mac, Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder, Bob Marley, Grateful Dead, Huey Lewis, Rick James, Prince, many, many more. So we're getting an emulation of a very famous piece of gear, which I like. I like that we're emulating one specific thing. So it's emulating either the 8 channels or the 2-channel summing options available in that API. And we've also got some EQ, some compression, some filters, and then we've got this line amp, which is an emulation of a Fairchild's AT101 line amp, so some 2B transformer goodness. And then we also have the analog to digital conversion options that Marc Daniel-Nelson has in his studio. We don't know what these converters are. It isn't mentioned anywhere, but we have 2 converter options under this analog setting, and they're based off of Marc Daniel-Nelson's dogs. That's what they're named after, Willie and Atticus. This is probably the most obscure part of the plugin, so this is where definitely reading the manual will give you some insight into that as to what this is. So what is the signal flow here? The signal flow is really important to know, I think. And the signal routing is into the EQ first. So the EQ is actually your first input, and then we go out of that. We have a clean gain out of that into the global input into the summing of the console. Out of that input knob, we go into our bias, and the bias is connected to the line amp. That's not said here in the signal flow, but discussed in the manual. So the bias is actually tied to the line amp, regardless if the line amp is in or out. Then we go into our summing options. You have a 2-channel or an 8-channel summing option, and the 8-channel is 4 stereo pairs, and the 2-channel obviously 1 stereo pair. Out of that, we go into our line amp, which we have the option of having on or off. We come out of the line amp and we go into our compressor, and the compressor on this is a total proprietary design. This isn't emulating any hardware. This is completely cooked up by Pulsar Modular and Marc Daniel-Nelson. It's got a couple of great options in it for ratios. Ratio A, I believe, is 1.2 to 1, and B is 1.8 to 1. Very different styles, feels. The knees are very different on them. And we have a sidechain in there at 80 hertz, And yeah, the auto attack and release threshold is really cool. We'll get to that in a minute. Then we come out of the compressor into the filters. The filters are also all proprietarily designed. They're unique. Ziad and Pulsar cooked these up, all tuned by ear. Sound really, really great, very musical, which if you've used any of the Pulsar filters before on any of their plugins, incredible sounding filters. We come out of the filters and then we go into our ADC options, and then we go out of our converter options down to the fader output here, and the fader output is totally clean gain. But we have a lot of options to manipulate the sound. The input's gonna affect how this thing feels, how much you're driving the circuitry. So pushing it harder, you're gonna get some saturation, some focus. Opening it up, you're gonna have a cleaner, more open, wide kind of sounding signal. The bias here, you have the option of driving the line amp with or without it on. Are you running that hot? Are you running it a little bit backed off? How are you hitting the line amp? Lots of options there, and then you'll hear it once we get into this. The 2-channel, 8-channel summing difference is incredible. And when we're on the 8-channel option and we have the line amp on, we actually have 2 different circuits available to us. Mod 1 is the true emulation, and Mod 2 is Pulsar's other alternative option here. The EQ is based off of an API 5500, which I love API EQs. I love the sound of API in general. If I had to pick one hardware color, that would be it. It would be API, preamps, EQ, compression. Love it. So this is an incredible emulation of a 5500, and Pulsar is actually also released with this a standalone version of the EQ, which comes with some different filter points. And we'll do a separate video on this and go into a pretty nerdy deep dive with it. We'll have a lot of fun with it. But yeah, lots of ways to manipulate the sound of how this thing is hitting. And this thing is immediately colored. It's making sound right from the minute you get going on it. You know, if you are firing it up and expecting it not to pass through cleanly, it's not going to. This thing is immediately affecting your audio. So how are we gonna test this thing? Well, we're gonna just load up a mix here that I've got, a very basic mix that has, aside from the vocals and the loop, doesn't really have anything happening on it, and we're just gonna play with it. Let's dive in. Everything all the time. Okay, so yeah, we've just got this living on the mix bus, and we're currently in bypass on this, so just gonna let it play a little bit here, and then I'll pop it in. Clean cuts but the blood stains, it's running out through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone, it's better than anything. Running through an open field, swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little kid, opening the present. Hey, I got a new thing. Don't know. So you can immediately hear when it comes in, the image and the soundscape just immediately changes. See the way your heart beats. We get a lot of depth and dimension. Keep breathing. A little bit of a volume bump. You can see it in the meters. Running through an open field, swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little kid. And this defaults to the 8-channel summing option and the Willie converters, and definitely a different vibe between all of these. The plugin, the recommendation for the plugin is to kind of hit it minus 18, minus 21 RMS on the meters here, somewhere in there. So it is set up like a real world kind of console. Typically minus 18 dBFS will equal 0 VU, so that calibration lines up here. And we're kind of living in and around that area. You do have the option with this to have an audio dimming transition, so we'll hear a little dip in the sound when we change some of the settings, and I have that on here. I find it useful when comparing A/B-ing things. So I'm just going to switch now between 8-channel and 2-channel. 2-channel. 8-channel were really kind of wide, bottom ends really wide, images really kind of lush and big. The center's kind of a little bit more laid back. And then when we go to the 2-channel here, the 2-channels really kind of stands up a little, kind of more in your face, a little bit punchier, more aggressive sounding, and the image is really kind of firm and centered.
Clean cuts by the blood stains, it's running out through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone.
So just that one knob right there, we get a lot of different tonal options available to us, or a significant way of kind of choosing how you want to set up your mix, or set up your drum bus, or put this on the lead vocal if you want to. However you want to do it, this is gonna change that vibe. I think for a song like this, I really kind of like the 8-channel, the width and the depth and the dimension. It's kind of a real drony sonic landscape in this song, so I feel like the 8-channel really kind of complements it. But certainly when I'm working on like rock material or punchier material, something I want to be a little bit more in your face, the 2-channel sounds great. So we'll leave it on 8-channel, and now we'll go and check out the converters. So we're on Willie right now.
Everything all the time. I'm working on a new plan, but I don't really know why. Clean cuts by the blood stains.
So that's Atticus.
It's running out through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone. It's better than anything.
So again, subtle but powerful difference between these two options here. Atticus is really, again, kind of
Like a little kid.
the center of the image is a little bit better to me here, but there just seems to be kind of a lush sound to it, but a kind of a clean, lush sound to it, to me anyways. And a real kind of front to back dimension to it, and top to bottom as well.
Keep breathing.
Really has some width to him, and then some punch.
Swimming in the ocean. Feeling like a
You
little
can hear those mids a little bit more pronounced, bottom end a little bit more pronounced.
Hey, I got a new thing. Don't know how to put it down.
Atticus kind of seems really kind of classy, beautiful sounding. Willie's got a little bit more attitude. Line amp.
An open field. Swimming in the ocean. Feeling like a little kid. Opening a present. Hey, I got a new thing. Don't know how to put it down. Everything all the time. Everything all the time.
So with it off, it feels like it comes a little bit closer to us, but we also lose some of the dimension.
Clean cuts by the blood stains.
Everything just gets a little bit lusher. I think Marc Daniel-Nelson in the manual uses the word velvety, and I think that's a great description. But we do lose some of the immediacy.
It's better than anything.
With it off, things are a little bit closer to us.
Open field. Swimming in the ocean. Feeling like a little kid. Opening the present.
The line amp, yeah, the image just gets better. Feels like we're running something through some great tubes and transformers. And yeah, with the line amp in on the 8-channel setting, we have 2 circuits available to us. So mod 1 emulating the exact circuit, true emulation, and Mod 2 is Pulsar's take.
Running through an open field, swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little kid, opening a present. Hey, I got a new thing, don't know how to put it down.
So Mod 2 circuit sounds a little bit punchier to me, a little bit more low mid information down there.
Clean cuts but the blood stains. It's running out through my cold
Mod 1 just feels a little bit more open, a little bit more dimension to it. I feel like Mod 2 kind of comes down a little bit and forward. The dynamics seem a little bit punchier.
Swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little kid, opening the
Mod 1 just seems, very open, very smooth. So yeah, we haven't even touched the EQ or the compressor at all, and we have all of these ways of changing the sound, and yeah, we haven't even got into the bias or the input options yet, which also dramatically change how this plugin feels and gives you a lot of control and ways to manipulate the audio. See, and when you take it off, it's subtly dramatic. All this vibe has kind of disappeared.
everything all the time.
Just adds so much.
On a new plan,
And the fact that all this harmonic stuff is happening with zero oversample, the sessions at 48K, zero oversample depth, and how clean it sounds, the saturation and the depth of saturation is really impressive to me. Typically, that kind of sonic quality is only achieved with oversampling at sample rates like 48K. The plugin does have an oversample option to turn the oversample option off if you are working at sample rates of 88.2 and higher, but I typically don't live in that world. Typically work at whatever the sample rate I was sent is, but yeah, that option is there for you higher sample rate users. Okay, let's dive into the input. Input controls the amount of signal pushed into or pulled back from the input transformer. So pushing clockwise results in a more saturated compressed signal with less headroom. Pulling counterclockwise results in less saturation, less circuit compression, and more headroom. Input affects the internal circuitry non-linearly as it is pushed. Varied harmonics are generated and components react differently to signal levels. This can result, for example, in a low-end bump or a tightening of the mids. And with the input, we have the option of driving the input and turning the output down simultaneously. You just gotta hold your shift key. So you can see those two are paired, which is awesome. And you can see, even though we don't have auto gain, we have some great meters here. So even though I'm coming up in level, I can immediately see the red is my output, and I can just quickly and easily visually rematch. So while there's no auto gain on the plugin, the meters are great, very kind of like Kush style-esque meters, input and output meters, which I think are great. All right, so let's push some input.
Everything all the time. I'm working on a new plan, but I don't really know why. Clean cuts but the blood stains. It's running out through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone. It's better than anything. Running through an open field, swimming in the ocean.
So
Feeling like a
really subtle, but as we're pushing it up there, you can really hear it tighten up. Kind of soak up into the input transformer of this thing. Get a little punchier, a little more focused. Here, we'll just copy this to B. So this is set to 0. Plus 6. 6.5. 6.6.
Everything all the time. Everything all the time.
You can just hear that bottom end get punchy and tight, fatter.
But I don't really know why.
Snare kind of tightens up in a really nice way.
The blood stains. It's running out through my cold veins.
Kind of the harshness of the top end kind of sucks up a little bit. Not that there's a lot of harsh top end on this song, but you can really kind of just hear that gentle rounding up top, which is very much what analog gear does when you push it. Input transformers, typically as you kind of soak into them, that kind of dampen your top end. Here, we'll copy this and we'll go even further.
Open up your ribcage. Hey. See the way your heart
So that's plus 12.
keep breathing. Running through an open field. Swimming in the ocean. Feeling like a little kid.
So you hear it gets like a little bit more compressed, a little bit more saturated. We lose some dynamics. The kick drum punches really nicely now. A little bit more focus.
Everything all the time. Everything all the time. I'm working on a new plan,
Let's check out the reverse.
but I don't really know why.
Let's open it up.
Clean cuts, but the blood stains. It's running out through my cold veins.
So minus 6.76. Did that really well.
It's better than anything. Running through an open field. Swimming in the ocean.
So a little bit more open sounding, a little more relaxed sounding.
Open in the present. Hey, I got a new thing. Don't know how to put it down. Air intake.
And yeah, a little bit more focused. Feels more saturated when we go back to 0.
Open up your ribcage. Hey. See the way your heart beats.
Really musical, kind of a bit of a sheen, really.
Keep breathing. Running through an open field. Swimming in the ocean. Feeling like a little kid. Open in the present. Hey, I got a new thing. Don't know how to put it down.
Kind of lose some definition, some firmness. It all kind of gets a little washy, not in a
Everything all the time.
very open kind of way.
Everything all the time.
This one, no. At 0, we're
On a new
firm,
plan.
close up.
But I don't really know why.
Minus 12, it just kind of all seems a little bit.
Clean cuts, but the
I want to use the word flimsy, flimsier, washier. We'll go quickly to the 2-channel. We'll hear what that sounds like pushed.
Running through an open field. Swimming in the ocean. Feeling like a little kid. Open in the present. Hey, I got a new thing. Don't know how to put it down. Air intake. Open up your ribcage. Hey.
So same feeling. Just tightening up and punching it up. But because we're on the 2-channel, the center is just way more focused and a little grittier. We're not getting that great kind of width.
Running through an open field, swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little kid, opening a present. Hey, I got a new thing, don't know how to put it down. Everything all the time.
And just a little bit more mid-focused on the 2-channel.
Everything all the time. I'm working on a new plan, but I don't really know why.
Really love what it does to the snare here and to the vocal. But when we're pushing it this hard, yeah, some of that bottom end gets soaked up and the top end. So just copy that across and we'll switch between the two.
It's better than anything. Running through an open field, swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little kid, opening the present.
Just really incredible what the difference is here. The 2-channel, yeah, super focused, super gritty. That 8-channel's just got a lot of body and depth. It really pushes the image out to the sides, front and back, top and bottom. But we do get a lot more bottom end here, which depending on what you're working on, maybe you don't want. Maybe you need a little bit more focus. Alright, so the line amp. The line amp and the bias are tied together. So the bias is driving that line amp. Bias sets the amplification operating point of the line amp circuitry, allowing it to run hot or run cool. Pushing clockwise or pulling counterclockwise, bias will drive or back off the line amp for a tighter, forward, more aggressive tone pushed, or more relaxed, deeper tone with more clarity and space pulled. Note, when line amp is off, the bias control is still effective because the full line amp circuit continues to be modeled with tubes off. In other words, the device is not true bypass, so signal is still affected by the virtue of passing through it. So many different ways of manipulating the sound.
Open up your ribcage. Hey, see the way your heart beats. Keep breathing. Running through an open field, swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little
So very similar effects to what the input is doing.
Hey, I got a new thing, don't know how to put it down.
The image just kind of becomes more relaxed, gets a little bit further away from us as we take the bias down.
Everything all the time.
Set to 0, a little bit closer to us, a little punchier. Dynamics are a little clearer.
I'm working on a new plan, but I don't really know why.
This just kind of gets really soft. Let's push it the other way.
Clean cuts but the blood stains. It's running out through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone. It's better than anything. Running through an open field, swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little
So again, it pushes forward, comes a little closer to us, gets a little punchier, a little more focused. Sounds great. Let's push it all the way.
See the way your heart beats. Keep breathing. Running through an open field, swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little kid.
feels like we just get a little bit more volume here too, even though we're not really seeing it. Kind of just getting some of that kind of everything feels like it's coming forward a little bit. Perceived level. What's the word I was looking for?
Everything all the time.
Very subtle, but very powerful.
I'm working on a new plan.
Here, we'll push the input here.
But I don't really know why.
So now we'll switch between full input and full bias.
But the blood stains. It's running out through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone. It's better than anything. Running through an open field, swimming in the ocean. Feeling
So the bias feels a little bit more subtle, a little truer when it's pushed to what we have. We don't really lose as much at the top end, but the bottom end doesn't punch up as nice as the bottom end does here when the input's driven. But this doesn't feel very reminiscent to me of pushing solid state stuff versus pushing tube stuff. Tube gears, a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more headroom, and just kind of really enhances the audio in a really, really nice way. So does driving solid state stuff. But you typically get more of this kind of punch and a little bit of a darkening and compression happening. You don't get as much of that compression happening when you're driving tubes. Very, very pleasing sound though. So, how long have we been at this? We haven't even touched the EQ in the compressor or the filters. Alright, so the EQ, API 550B. If you've never played with one before, this is an incredible emulation of one. Very familiar sound, punchy and fat, but also the top end is really beautiful and open. Yeah, we do have the gain multiplier options, so 1 times we're at 2 dB steps. 0.5, half of that, so 1, 2, 3, 4.5, and 6, and then 0.25, so we can move in half dB increments, which is great. Gives us a lot of range, a lot of flexibility. We're just going to give this some basic mix bus EQ and dial that in, and an AB without it out it.
Keep breathing.
So we can very easily see that our level came up.
I'm working on a new plan.
Very easily back it off.
But I don't really know why.
Copy that over.
Clean cuts, but
so
the stains.
Maybe we'll just leave the EQ engaged so we don't get
through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone.
So flat. So stunning sounding EQ. When we engage the EQ, it just feels larger than life. We're maxing out at 2 dB moves here. We don't have anything crazy happening, but the EQ just adds a lot of depth and punch. Opens it up. Very musical, very API. I'm gonna do a separate video where I deep dive the EQ, the separate EQ that was released with this, the P450. See why I'm so impressed with this EQ, but just even with small moves here on the mix, makes a big difference. So one of the cool things about the gain multiplier is that even though we're at 2 dBs of gain here, the curves will actually be different depending on what the multipliers are doing. So we'll copy that over. We'll switch to 2 dBs on the one-time multiplier. So these are both 2 dB gain moves, but they're going to sound very different. So on the 0.5 multiplier, feels more kind of relaxed and broader sounding, a little bit bigger overall. On the one times, it feels like really punchy and focused. So curves are reacting differently, even though we got the same gain setting, curves are different depending on the multiplier. So another way you can kind of play and check out the sound of it. But the EQ sounds stunning to me. You can really push it, which is very reminiscent of analog. Using analog gear, you can really put it into some very, very extreme places, and it doesn't feel that extreme. It feels like it really works wonderfully. Clean cuts by the blood stains. It's running out through my cold veins. Emotional EQ, so as we boost gain, the Q is tightening. Just big fat bottom end. Great thing about the EQ, because it is oversampled, engaging it does disrupt the audio just a little bit, but there's a great way to easily bypass all the channels either individually or all together. And on Mac, you just hold Command Option. Sorry, I'm not sure what it is in Windows people, but you can just bypass each of the bands. Obviously, we're at some extreme settings here, so we're losing some gain, but great way if you just want to bypass one band and see what it's doing, or all of it. And the meters, didn't really go into those. They're RMS-based meters, but we also have some peak information down here, so that's great. You can see what the raw input is, where the raw level in is, and if you're using the input, you can actually see raw plus in, which I don't know why they're not linked, but you can turn that in. Turn that on if you want to see what the raw signal is plus the input gain that you're adding, where you're looking at the meters. Very handy feature, very great metering, very easy to use, very quick. Alright, let's check out the compressor. So if we remember from our handy dandy signal flow, we come out of the line amp into the compressor. And the compressor here again is a totally proprietary design, so it's not emulating anything. We have 2 ratio options. Ratio A is 1.2 to 1 and ratio B is 1.8 to 1. Very different, distinct sounding knees, different feels. We do have a threshold here and a gain reduction meter. We also have gain reduction up here. But I really love the fact that it's actually not really in your line of sight. Just this little bit of an LED lights up when you start compressing. And it's not telling you exactly what you're doing. You kind of have to look up here if you want to see the technical info. And I really like this feature, and it's something I love about Pulsar, particularly the P440 EQ, is it really puts the emphasis on listening to what you're doing, rather than just going, well, I think I want 2 dBs of compression. It's like, well, maybe it sounds better with 5 or 6, and maybe you wouldn't get there without, if you were looking at the meter. Also very interesting is that the threshold doesn't, like if you drive the input of this more, it doesn't change the threshold of the compressor, which originally threw me quite a bit, and I thought, well, if I'm pushing it all, I want to be able to push the whole signal path. But the threshold lives independent of that, even when you push the EQ, I think. Yeah, the compression doesn't change. So yeah, at first that kind of threw me, but I actually really love it now after using it for a couple of months. So again, very easy. I would love auto gain, but very easy to change and figure out where we are in the meters, how much gain reduction we're having, how much I need to come up. I can just look at the meters real quick and line it up. The output is colored. It does have harmonic color to it. So adding gain with the compressor is changing the harmonic content of your signal beyond what is already changing harmonically just by compressing it. But yeah, let's have a listen to what this compressor is doing. Here's just a couple of dBs, ratio A. We'll get into the attack and release here in a bit.
Everything all the time. Everything all the time. I'm working on a new plan, but I don't really know why. Clean cuts but the blood stains.
It's kind of gooey, kind of sticky and punchy in a really nice way. Let's just push it harder. Play with some attack and release. So even at super fast, doesn't feel like it's totally choking things out. It is an auto attack and auto release circuit.
Swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little kid, opening a present. Hey, I got a new thing, don't know how to put it down. Everything all the time. Everything all the time. I'm working on a new plan, but I don't really know why.
So even fast,
Clean cuts but the blood stains.
lots of reduction, still very musical.
It's running out through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone. It's better than anything.
So this is something I wish is that the ratios would line up a little bit better. Switching between the two, you do have to set up a bit of an A/B in order to compare which ratio works better for you, because our gain reduction dramatically changes.
Air intake. Open up your rib cage. Hey. See the way your heart beats.
So you can hear when we go to B, it's way, feels like a way heavier knee to me, harder knee,
Open field. Swimming in the
way grabbier.
feeling like a little kid. Opening a present.
A is much smoother, more relaxed, a little silkier.
Don't know how to put it down.
B is much more pronounced. And it's interesting because they're both very low ratio settings.
Everything all the time.
So B definitely gets way grabbier,
Clean cuts, but the blood stains.
more aggressive sounding.
It's running out through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone. It's better than anything. Running through an open field.
And then yeah, we have a sidechain in here at 80 hertz. Very musical sounding.
Hey, I got a new thing. Don't know how to put it down. Air intake. Open up your rib cage. Hey,
You just hear all of that bottom end just come through there. We'll just hear what the gain is doing. So we'll take this down. So this is without any added gain. And we'll add 6 dBs again.
everything all the time. I'm working on a new plan,
Come on, Brad.
but I don't really know why. Clean cuts, but the blood stains. It's running out through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone. It's better than anything. Running through an open field.
So you can hear that output knob is adding some harmonic excitement to the signal. Let's push it all the way and we'll see what it does here.
Hey, I got a new thing. Don't know how to put it down. Air intake. Open up your rib cage. Hey, see the way your heart beats.
A little sweeter, a little more exciting,
Keep breathing.
a little crispier on the top, but all very musical.
Running through
After the compression, we go into our filters, and again, the filters are total proprietary design and tuned by Ziad himself at Pulsar, not based on anything. And the filters are separate from the EQ circuit, so we can take the EQ circuit out, but our filters still are in the signal path.
Hey, I got a
So just keep that in mind.
Don't know how to put it down. Everything all the time. Everything all the time. I'm working on a new plan, but I don't really know why.
So just this kind of nice sheen comes in with the 20K. Just kind of opens up really. There's like a bit of a resonant bump up there where we're just getting some lift.
It's bigger than anyone. It's better than anything.
Just makes the whole thing feel more open and classy to me.
Through an open field, swimming in the ocean, feeling like a little kid, opening the present. Hey, I got a new thing.
Just very musical sounding filters.
Air intake.
For mixed bus purposes, I'm not really going to get into the 10K or 5K range of low pass filter, but I definitely would play around with the 15K, pushing into the 15K, pushing into the 20K, having those in place, and then playing around, pushing into them to see what kind of shapes on the top end you can get.
Feeling like a little kid.
I just love this 20K.
Hey, I got a new thing. Don't know how to put it down. Everything all the time. Everything all the time. I'm working on a new plan.
So put the 20 hertz high pass filter in and we get a little bit of a bump on the bottom end, a little bit more body.
Clean cuts, but the blood stains. It's running out through my cold veins.
solidifies the bottom end in a really nice way.
It's better than anything. Running through an open field.
So again, a bit of a resonant bump down there, and very musical.
Like a little kid, opening the present. Hey, I got a new thing. Don't know how to put it down. Air intake.
So even at 40, it sounds really nice on the bottom end. Maybe we're losing a little bit too much sub information, but it still really kind of bumps up the bottom end, punches it up, and solidifies it.
Keep breathing. Running through an open field. Swimming in the ocean. Feeling like a little kid. Opening the present.
Even the 70 sounds great. 90, not really going to use too much on a mix bus, but that's just for mix bus. You can use this plugin wherever, and definitely if you're using a vocal, maybe you're at 70 or 90, or on a guitar cab or acoustic guitar, those additional options are great. And yeah, completely independent of the EQ. Okay, well, let's just set this up to a spot that I really like it, and we'll do a quick final A/B. So
Everything all the time. Everything all the time. I'm working on a new plan, but I don't really know why.
pretty crazy what that's all doing. Just puts the mix in a whole nother planet.
It's running out through my cold veins. It's bigger than anyone. It's better than anything.
Just the depth and dimension of all of it working together is really incredible. We're really put into another place.
Feeling like a little kid, opening the present.
All right. Well, I think that kind of does it. That was a pretty hefty deep dive into this thing. But this is no small plugin. A lot of depth, a lot of detail went into this thing. And as I said, I got to be on the beta for this, so I've been using it for a couple of months already and absolutely love it. It's definitely a plugin that I like to have on right from the get-go. It's not something that I feel like I can add in later. It's got a bit too much color to be added in later. I kind of get my balance going on a mix with this in place, and then before I start diving into the mix, start playing around with some of the different settings, 2-channel, 8-channel. Which converter do I want? Do I want the line input on the line amp or not? And play around with that, and then kind of shape the overall mix before I kind of work into the individual tracks. I definitely like a top-down approach in mixing, so I like having the mix bus in place before I really kind of go to town. Anything that I've shot out with this or A/B'd with it, I've been absolutely blown away with the sonics of it. I think Pulsar Modular has done an exceptional job with this, and it really is a beautiful sounding bit of gear. And yeah, not something I'm just using on my mix bus, but definitely drum buses, guitar buses, all that kind of stuff. I don't find myself using it a ton on individual elements, but I haven't really given it a fair shot there enough probably to speak on that. But definitely for any bus processing you're doing, highly recommend. I haven't used it a ton in mastering because again, it is very colored. It's got a very immediate sound to it, and I find that can really be a bit too much for a lot of masters if the master's not wanting a lot of color. But certainly on a few tunes that I've used this one, boy, it adds a lot of quality. And certainly I've used the EQ by itself a lot more than the overall channel. So the standalone EQ, the P450, I've used a lot actually in mastering, but not this whole sidecar as much. Things I would love to see are very minor on this. The metering's great, so that kind of negates my wish for an auto gain. Some undo and redo would be incredible. But this plugin doesn't really leave me wanting for a lot. And maybe it's because I've been part of the development of it and I've seen it come together. But I think it's just a beast of a plugin and well worth checking out. So yeah, great job, Pulsar Modular and Marc Daniel-Nelson. Highly recommend checking this out if you haven't already, and checking out all the Pulsar plugins, the P11, the P440, the P42. Those are the ones I've used and are regular staples in my workflow. So highly recommend checking them out. I think that's going to do it for me. This is a long deep dive. Kind of feel like I've gone into the abyss a little bit. Thanks for checking the video out. Of course, if you're enjoying the content, please drop me a like, hit the subscribe button. And if you're checking out the plugin and you have any thoughts on it, love to hear what you think, hear where you're using it and how you're using it. So, yeah, always love that stuff. So anyways, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. All right.